Teachers, have you ever looked up social media of past students? What's your best success story? My media law and ethics professor liked a 95-week-old post on my Instagram. I only noticed because I was on the app and tapped the notification as soon as I saw it. He unliked it almost immediately. 2 weeks later in class we were covering social media ethics and in his lecture made a comment about looking us up online, then said he was joking. He hadn't done it, but I saw that like. What kind of photo was the one he accidentally liked, if you don't mind? I'm following 2 piano majors, both wonderful students, who are now playing duets and concerts on a regular basis. Not only that, but just as I suspected would happen, they've announced their engagement and will marry in September. They're an attractive couple and well liked. It'll be fun to see how their careers develop. This one's sweet. I randomly looked up 2 couples that met in one of my classes. For both of them I remember watching their relationship develop from a very young age, and while both are clearly at different stages in life, they are both immensely happy, and still look at their so like they're the greatest thing in the world. It's really cute to see. When I was in high school I was constantly late, not for school, because it was 10 miles of rural roads to get there, so our only option was the school bus. I mean for class. It was on purpose. I just fricked around in the halls or outside. This meant I got sent to the deputy head's office quite a lot to be told off for it. Fast forward many years later and I'm working in my office. I have a LinkedIn page. It's proved quite useful. Many current and former colleagues have endorsed my skills, one of which is timekeeping, as I am never late for anything. Then I get a notification and see that the deputy head has endorsed me. I'm 100% sure he did it sarcastically, but it gave me a good chuckle. Send them a letter detailing that you actually got good at timekeeping because of the shenanigans you used to pull. It might make them smile. My teaching career is pretty varied. One school was a private school, the other was rural First Nation school. Once they turn 18 and are graduated, if they add me, I'll add them. I like to show you can transition from a professional relationship to a casual one appropriately, as long as I generally trust the student. So success is measured very differently. The private school ensured every girl graduated and went to university, so some are doctors, excellent research scientists, or on their way in business and law. These amazing successes are expected. At the First Nation school, we just had 2 of our grads go to college for cooking and mechanic tech. This is a huge success in the eyes of the school and community. Both have students who are struggling, whether it's too much partying and enabling from parents to parents who are struggling with addiction, which in turn leads the youth to addiction. It plays out, and it's hard to watch as a teacher. I love every student I have had. They all deserve a healthy life with purpose. This job is the most rewarding yet heartbreaking position, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I spent 11 years teaching in a very impoverished, rural area. Many of the kids came from homes with a family member incarcerated or spending time in rehab, and many had parents on disability or working multiple jobs. I had kids, this was elementary school, bring marijuana or knives to school. My first year there was the county's attempt to turn the school around. Previously, many of the teachers just let the kids do whatever they wanted. Coming into that was rough, but I am proud to say I feel like my colleagues and I made a real impact over the years. I have had several students go on to college and get great jobs or go to vocational school to get an excellent job in that field. I have run into students around town doing steady retail or blue collar jobs, making a good living. Very happy, and I am so proud. On the other hand, I have also had many students get pregnant before graduating high school and never finish. They are on welfare. Others have fallen into dealing drugs, or so I have heard. One made the news for getting into an altercation with a rival gang member. They shot at each other. Neither was hurt badly, but my former student was arrested. So, it's been a mixed bag. I guess you can't save everyone. Seems like you've already done a great job with those kids. Not me, but my teacher told us a story from when he was at another school. He was supposed to do an IT class, and he looked up all the students' names in advance and memorized them. You can imagine the shock on the students' faces. He then proceeded to data fish them by creating a fake Google login page on his own website. Of course he didn't do any harm. He just sent an email back containing their passwords. Their reaction was, well, that was a good lesson, but we wouldn't fall for this in a real life situation, to which he replied, if you didn't notice it already, this was a real life situation. Former student here. I randomly streamed a jazz concert I was playing recently, and one of the people who tuned in was my former high school music teacher. I like this one. This is cute. Most are making their way through college and are now beginning their first jobs careers. 2 students have messaged me this last year thanking me for inspiring them to pursue performing arts careers. I've only taught at a high school level for 7 years, so I think the best is still to come. Username checks out. I knew a kid in high school who was doing some pretty nasty crap. Would go around smashing windows, throwing rocks at cars for fun. Later on had a really bad drug habit and got arrested for telling the cops he was robbed at gunpoint for money, when it turns out he was like beat for like an ounce of coke or something and thought he could get the other kid fricked. Recently saw an article in a finance website that quoted some of his investing tactics. Looked him up on Facebook and he's a very, very wealthy stockbroker or something in NYC. It's usually the psychopaths who make it big. I was a teaching assistant for an introductory engineering class and also a physics class. I kept in tabs on some of my former students on social media, and several of them have gone on to earn graduate degrees from big name engineering schools like UC Berkeley, and many of them recently graduated from medical school. Physics is a prerequisite for the MCAT. It's pleasing to see. One of my students was the typical stoner. Smart as heck. Easily one of my top students. He just couldn't be asked to give a frick. I pushed him in my class and he pulled an A. Apparently one of his first. He graduates and the other teachers assume that he'll be getting a dead-end job in no time. Fast forward 2 years later, I find out that he's a sales exec with a massive German shipping company on the fast track to management. He has a ridiculously hot Brazilian girlfriend and seems like he got his crap together. I'm happy for him. Mildly related, but I looked up a teacher of mine from high school and got in contact with him to thank him. He was my computer sciences teacher from grade 10 through 13. We used to have grade 13 in Ontario, Canada. I was in my mid-20s when I did it. After high school I'd taken a crappy job in an unrelated field. When the business went up I started working for an ISP. The programming knowledge, Visual Basic, mainly. This teacher taught me all about conditional statements and the basis of programming. I was able to transfer this knowledge into things like PHP and Perl, which allowed me to begin working with databases and so forth. That knowledge allowed me to write some really cool crap at work, outside my scope of my job description, which got me promotions and ultimately the job I have today, which is really a prosperous career. Finding him wasn't all that hard. I knew basically where he lived and he was in the phone book. Called, said hello, told him what I was up to these days and thanked him for always pushing me to do better, expand my skills and encouraging me to do more. He was always kind, supportive and positive, but put me in line when I needed it. I credit a lot of my current success to that man. Without his prompting, who dang well knows what I'd be doing. He'll never read this, but thanks Mr. Huckster. Maybe you could set up a scholarship at the school in his honor. You could gear it towards kids planning STEM majors. Of course, I have a couple of girls I taught who came from immigrant families. The girls were both born in the US, who are both starting their master's programs this fall. One boy I taught has his own video production company. I think he's about 23 or 24 now, and he seems to do good business and get paid jobs. I was in a rough inner city charter school for most of my time teaching, so the success stories are a little harder to come by. I have more former students who had kids by the time they hit 18 than who went to college. I spent my last year teaching at a rural traditional school, and some of those kids are entering their senior year of college this year. I don't see as much from them, but I was only at that school for a year. Pretty recently I found out a kid I did my service with went on win several scholarships. Pretty proud of him because he had lots of problems in his house, but that didn't stop him. Not me, but a former professor of mine convinced all of his freshman sociology class that he was a medium. On the first day he called out someone's initials and asked whoever had those initials to raise their hand. He picked one of the girls with those initials and read her future, describing her long distance boyfriend, using his name and where he was living, and how their relationship was going to fail after he sleeps with her best friend, also using best friend's name. The girl was so freaked out she almost cried. The last day of class my professor told us he made it all up by looking up our social media, memorizing one and then supplementing a story to make it seem like he could predict the future. Yeah, that's fricked lol. Guy I know has been a high school teacher for a long time, and a homebrewer about as long. Coincidentally, he opened a brewery last year, and his Facebook and Twitter feeds are full of pictures of his old students drinking his beer. It is quite good. I'm late to the party, but I'm a teaching instructor for a self-contained SID elementary classroom. I've been working here for a few years and one of my first students came back in with his mother and he was walking. I know it's not as impressive as other stories, but it was so exciting to see him walking on his own. Actually, my nephew is going to the same elementary school that I did. To my surprise, the principal remembers me. When I went to a family brunch the school was having, she caught up with me and was really excited to hear my educational path and how I was doing. I didn't think I made that big an impression in elementary school to be remembered by name almost 10 years later. I'm student. I found out my high school economics teacher had passed away last year from a massive stroke in her 40s. She donated her organs to 6 different people. I miss her. Same here. I am about to graduate college with an engineering degree. I wanted to go back to my high school and show off my diploma to my calculus teacher, and main reason as to why I chose her alma mater and engineering. She passed away unexpectedly last December. I have the reverse of this. So I'm a staff member at a university. I didn't want professors adding me on Facebook, so when I went to block them I took a peek at their profiles first. One older professor lady had her profile public and had thought she was searching for students, but not knowing how Facebook works, posted all these statuses with just the students' names. I had a good laugh and then blocked her. I also laughed imagining one of the students looking at her profile and thinking, what the frick, I can't believe she tried to search me. I'm 40, and my first group of students are turning 35 this year. All of the students I taught in high school are 30-ish by now. The students I taught in college range widely between ages 20 and 65. I'm Facebook friends with lots of them, and I love that. But no, I don't look up random former students. I realize that you probably started teaching in your 20s, but in my head I'm imagining a 13-year-old teaching a bunch of kids and it's hilarious. I had a kid called Michael. Michael was a complete toe rag of a kid. I once asked him what sport it was that he applied himself to be so fit. Kid was ripped. He replied running from the cops. He also told me his family was proud generational welfare recipients and he hoped to do the same. Last I saw he was alive, not in jail and on welfare. If one of my former students were to cure cancer, they would still not be as successful as Michael. Some have done pretty good. Some have gone to jail. One is dead. Most are doing somewhere between not dead and terrific. One interesting trend I noticed was all the ones that went Navy are doing really well for themselves. One just bought his first house and we've been meaning to grab a beer to catch up. Another is in medical school now and spends his free time traveling when he can. The others are keeping a pretty good cap on things and seem to be doing well. However, the ones that went army seem to be struggling. One is working at one of those uniform service companies. Another seems to bounce between different lifestyles ranging from I'm a raver to I'm freaking broke as frick. A third just got arrested at a concert or something. 2 former students are stripping. At least a couple are working for different MLM schemes. Several have various criminal records ranging from vandalism and shoplifting, and I think one has an attempted murder charge. One died in a shooting. I'm not sure if he was the intended victim or just a bystander. I think the best success stories are the 2 Navy ones and one that graduated college 2 years ago and just got an apartment with her fiance in my hometown. I also talk to her parents from time to time and it sounds like she's really got a good life ahead of her. I look forward to seeing her family grow. Not a teacher, but in our school we had a guy come and doing a talk on web safety and to prove a point on the importance of privacy settings on social media. He collated the most cringe-worthy photos of kids in our year whose profiles were public and showed them in front of our whole year. Needless to say, there were a few red faces afterwards, lol. Lol, that is insane. Definitely wouldn't be legal nowadays though. I looked up my middle school football coach. Sent a friend request. Reply was the Facebook version of new phone who dis. I've got a former student who by 18 was pregnant, new fake breasts and working at Hooters. I had her in 7th grade at a very expensive private school. I had to reread this to make sure you didn't get her pregnant by 18. I taught junior high for about a decade, until about 8 years ago. I just had a student who got drafted by the Carolina Panthers in this year's draft, a bunch of doctors, and one I'm proud of, a student who helped develop a successful app that supports women's health here and in third world countries. It was my teacher in a 6th grade, but one day during class he said a word that sounded to us like frick, so we all laughed and I guess someone started talking about it. Well, later that day a girl in that class said lol Mr. said frick on Instagram and I commented lol yeah he did or something like that. Well, next class he brings us all into the room and the lights are off and he starts playing a video on the board about cyberbullying. I started getting the point and yeah, that was my first panic attack. Fun times. He then showed on the board everyone's comments, including mine. Apparently his 4 or 5-year-old daughter asked him why he said bad words. I have no idea why that blew up so big. I don't really think that's cyberbullying, but maybe. And how did his daughter find your Instagram account? Not a teacher, but related. When I was 10 years old, my teacher used to praise this other kid in the class. She said he was the sort of person that would drive past in his Ferrari as we look on from the bus stop. She said it a few times, and it always stuck with me. Fast forward 15 years, and we both graduated from the same medical school with the same additional degree. Freaking showed that B. I teach organic and biochemistry at a university with high acceptance rates, as in we take you if you have an act better than 18, sometimes lower. You would be surprised how many people go to the Caribbean for medical veterinary school with 3.0 GPA and crap MCAT scores. People you would want nowhere near you or your pets as a physician. These are generally students who had to retake multiple classes multiple times and still couldn't get B's. If I walk into a doctor's office and see one of those schools on the wall, I never come back. The vast majority of Caribbean med students either don't graduate or don't get a residency position. So, most don't actually become practicing physicians. Most people consider the schools as scams that prey on people. I taught at NASA for a few weeks during my teacher training. One of the students became part of a team that builds robots for Mars. One of the students got sent to space for a year while his twin stayed home. I taught a year in college. One of my students is part of the White House staff. I have a student working for the FBI for cybersecurity, veterinarian, undertaker, manager, engineer, etc. I am proud of all my students. Sorry, I hate to do this, but I'm not a teacher. As a manager, I routinely look up previous employees who have left my team or my company for various reasons. I had to let someone go a while back who I thought was a bright kid that needed direction and a lot of structure in his life. I recently looked him up on Facebook, and he's doing quite well for himself. He started his own company which is doing well, proposed to the girl he was just starting to date when I had to let him go, and seems to really have figured some things out that were major challenges for him when I knew him. I know this isn't directly tied to the original question, but the spirit of the question is the same no matter if it's a previous employee or student. Not a teacher, but I'm an all-round general fuck up from way back. I've done so much crap ranging from the wow, that kid's a dipshit stage to hushed whisper did he just do that, convinced my girlfriend to move in with me when I was 17. We're happily married, but the general view was that we were fricking up, and hindsight being 20/20, maybe life would have been easier had we waited, and we struggled. We were dirt poor, couldn't afford our bills, didn't have the money to party or do fun crap, so we can't even say that we blew our money on stupid stuff. We were just broke. Fast forward through several years of long hours, dead-end jobs, a military deployment, 2 kids, depression, both of us. I decided to go to school and try to make something better out of my life. I couldn't afford to go to college on my own merit, jumped high school early to join the military, and kids don't net many scholarships. I earned the GI Bill and took out both the subsidized and unsubsidized federal loans to help cover living expenses. My wife took on a part-time job to help cover life, and we basically agreed to only see each other long enough to trade off with the kids' housework until I was out of school. I hunted for a school that specifically covered my interest, programming, my passion, and pays well. Supposedly, I could only afford to go to community college, so I found one nearby-ish and settled into the grind. After 2 years, I was nearing the end of my rope. I had focused so hard to max out my grades in order to be as marketable as possible. I was starting to worry if I would have energy left for the job hunt, or even work, after school. My C++ professor overheard me mention this to some like-minded friends after class one day, and was shocked. "Why didn't you say something? I'd hire you right now. I thought for sure you already had a job in the field based on your work and participation in class. Otherwise I'd have offered you one sooner." TLDR. Professor felt highly enough of my work that he hired me straight out of an associate's degree, paying me competitive BS degree wages. A year later, I have earned a raise that had to be approved by no less than 4 supervisors, and I'm complimented regularly for my work ethic and quality. I work from home, and just bought a house. No more dirty, run-down slummy duplexes shared with prostitutes. Raises interesting questions from the 5 and 7-year-old children. For my family, I imagine my professor probably feels pretty good about himself and about the part he played in contributing to my success. I taught GED classes for a while. The kids were 16, 21 and mostly referred by the courts, and this was the last step before going to prison or juvie or something. Some were referred by social services or the social security or welfare office. These kids had everything against them, and usually the best you could hope for was for them to show up and do a little work. It was a sad group of kids. Pretty dismal. There is one young woman, now late 20s, who just kind of got her stuff together, stopped hanging around people who brought her down, and really is doing well as a functioning member of society. It sounds like easy stuff that makes sense, but that really took her leaving where she lived and all her friends and starting anew. That is pretty darn difficult for anyone to do. I remember she bounced in and out of my class for a year and a half, and when I finally strong-armed her into taking the GED exam, she was surprised at how easy it was. She was a smart kid but never believed in herself. For reference, a passing score on the GED is normed at 40th percentile for graduating seniors. That means 40% of graduating high school seniors probably could not pass it. It isn't a super easy exam, but it isn't impossible for most people. She wrote me this last year. "Through my whole life you're the only teacher I have kept in touch with and can really say you have made an impact on my life. That's the stuff that sticks with you." My professor in college for Intro to Mythology taught Michael Jordan back when he was at UNC. The coach was always on his butt about Jordan getting his work done on time. Blank. I went to a really crappy high school. Most kids are in jail, on their 3rd kid, or on trial. I have my English and art teachers as friends on Facebook, and they always comment on my achievements or new jobs, so I would hope that we are their success story. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.